Sooner Nation, Thunder Nation, we are back. This is the Just Okay Sports Podcast. That is Just Oklahoma Sports Podcast. I'm Daryl, one of your hosts. I'm here with my brother, Jared. And if you are new to this thing, we are glad that you're along for the ride. And while you're here, please hit the like, subscribe button while you're at it. Hey, even leave us a 5, 4, even 3-star review. Really, it is just an okay podcast. So all of those work great, just great for us. And we would be so grateful. So, Jared, it's been a minute since we've been together. How are you, brother?
Yeah, dude, it's like since the last time we we've nearly had a world war, nearly had a civil war. Uh 2024. It's we're not even out of January and I'm already tired, bro. Yeah, no, it's been a minute. But no, just been busy, man. Like I said, the nature of the at least the company I work for and just kind of the business or the IT in general is like New Year after you get past the holidays and the New Year and stuff. It's just like everything needs to be done as fast as possible. So
Right.
everything kind of ramps up for a few months. So yeah, I've just been like crazy busy, man. But like I haven't even hardly I've been trying to like keep up with everything that's been going on. And like I just honestly the last like month or so, I just kind of like fallen off. Like since the bowl game, it's like I've kind of just like lost track of a lot of things just because, like I said, just life happens. So
Yeah. Um, I definitely feel like I've lost track of all the OU football kind of inside stuff and talking to guys and everything. I'm checking Thunder scores here and there, but kind of the same. It's just been wild stuff. But some cool stuff. Something I say that. Well, yeah, I never thought I would say. And I'm really proud. So I get to tell everybody on the podcast and they get to deal with it. But my daughter is a national champion and will be getting a ring that states national champion with her cheer squad. And so I was pretty stinking stoked about that. Um, Never cheered a day in her life and jumped in and starts doing stunts and all the
I'm
jazz and
so you're
wins a
saying
national
see
title.
So you're saying my niece is talented, which means she takes after
Yeah.
my sister-in-law. So that's wonderful.
That's
Um,
so true though.
so yes, and by the way, because I know you mentioned it, and I just want to tell you because the game should be wrapping up soon. Thunder just scored, so now it is 104-98 with 14 seconds left in the fourth quarter. So
Let's go.
no Jokic, but still beating one of the top teams in
Denver
the
Nuggets.
West. So
Heck yeah. Huge win. And we will talk about that as we arrive at the end. So, yeah, been crazy. Has it been pouring down rain on you guys? We got
no, it's done.
plastered with rain.
No, it hasn't really done much. It's been kind of cool. Well, today it was pretty warm. And when I say cool, again, everybody like, and some people are like, it's not cold. I'm like, I understand that it's not cold. I'm from Oklahoma. I understand that. But for here, it is cool, right? Like, so,
Yeah.
for about a week or two, it's been like down and like the high's been like hovering in the 60s, maybe. But,
Nice.
which it's we really had a couple of days. Like, there was probably about 3 or 4 days there that it was like, I think the high for a couple of days was like barely in the 50s, which is pretty crazy for down here. So it sounds funny. I was actually talking to Scotty. Talking to one of my friends the other day, and he used to live down here. And we were talking about,
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, dude, he's like, I always felt bad because he's like, all my little lizards in the back. He's like, I didn't want any of them to croak. And I'm like, dude, I love those guys. And it's like everybody's like, why? And I'm like, bro, because they keep like they eat all the bugs. Like I don't have to worry. Like everybody's like, how are you gonna deal with the bugs in Florida? It's like, bro, I have a privacy fence in my backyard, and that thing is crawling with lizards,
Yeah.
and they don't harm me or do anything. Like they don't want to do anything to do with me. But yeah. So it's like funny. I remember like it was cold out, and I was like, man, I really hope my lizards are all right. Like I was like, it was like thinking of like a cat or a dog or something, you know. But
Yeah. Oh my
anyway,
gosh.
but yeah, no, it's been things have been chill down here, really. I mean, for Florida, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
So but yeah,
Gotcha.
it's like it's we got a lot to talk about. We
Yeah.
got a lot to talk about this one. So
Well, let's try to give a very uninformed because I think we both admit life's been a little bit crazy. So we are gonna give the cliff notes to things that most people know. I think the biggest news, and we always start with OU football. The
right.
biggest piece of good news that we have in regards to OU football is that they finally land a offensive line transfer prospect into the class, which they have been going after a lot of guys and just seem to be coming up empty after empty after empty. But they get Garen Hatchett from the University of Washington. Now, when I say that, most fans get really, really excited and real pumped up because you think, hey, University of Washington, these guys were in the playoff. They were Joe
Here,
Moore Award
there's
finalists.
Dark Daryl here.
I'm
Here
not
you go.
I just want to, before you go down that road, Mr. Hatchett at 2 years at Washington has 4 starts under his belt. He has a start against Cal, Arizona, Oregon, and Arizona State. And I would say that 2 of those teams are really good, and 2 of those teams are right? So his numbers are decent. Like when you look at, pressures a lot, all that stuff. But again, not a ton of production, not a ton of competition, all those things. I still think this is a good body to bring in. We needed interior help. We needed interior depth. Now, me personally, I see it as depth. I'll give the floor to you since I'm being so dark and dismal at just giving the facts of his starts. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, look, so I think there's a couple of things here. I mean, for one, I think it's a big get for Coach B and the staff, right?
Yeah.
They did a very good job bringing, like you said, bringing in somebody in a position of need. I don't know how it's going to shake out. There's a lot of new faces in that room this year, or going into this next year, I should say. So it's going to be interesting to see who kind of rises to the top there. But I feel like when I see him, I feel like he has some good upside. So I think there's potential there. You know what I mean? I don't think this is like you have those guys you bring in. It's like, okay, they're very clearly a depth person. And it's like they're there just to be good enough that if they have to come in for a series or two, they can do the job somewhat,
Yeah.
I don't think that's this guy. I think he's a guy that could be a really good dude. Okay, well, there's Dark Daryl entering the chat. Um, like I don't think I think like I said, I think that they're gonna have to add some people. And like I said, I think we have to all start to like take especially offensive line, but even the defensive line to some degree, it's like well, really mostly more of the offensive line. I think people like get like lost in the nuance of an offensive line play and scheming.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of guys that go. It's weird. Like an offensive lineman is just as critical for us. The system is just as critical for an offensive lineman as is to quarterback or running back or receiver, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm saying. I don't think you can't look at somebody on paper and say, well, man, they didn't really play at Washington or wherever,
Right.
and so they're not going to play at OU. It's like there's different scheme, different coaching things. You know what I mean? There's just it's a different system. So again, I this is one of those things that I think that's what I say. I think he has potential. But we're going to see how spring workouts go. We're going to see how fall workouts go, and we'll see who, like I said, who's going to rise to the top. But
Sure.
again, making that addition and grabbing a big guy out of the portal, out of a big time school that was just in the national championship game. I don't know how you can say it's bad, right? Like
Right.
you could say it's not great or whatever, but like I said, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think it's a quality addition.
Yeah. And so I want to be clear. This is not, there's a lot worse you could do. That's the way I would say it, right? There are worse
Right.
players you could have brought in. At the same time, a guy that is under 300 pounds trying to play guard in the SEC is not something that gets me fired up. Um, I I I am concerned but optimistic if I see that game one the starting 5 lineup has this guy as a written in starter,
Right.
especially going in the SEC, and that's kind of just my concern. Now, I've said this. Bill Bedenbaugh is without a doubt a very good coach, and he is a very good developer. You cannot deny the amount of first. I mean, he's about to go back to back years with a first round pick, but putting an entire group together has not been there for a while. It has not been. I mean, look, I think Jacob Sexton could potentially be a very good tackle on this team, right? Um, And we'll see about the rest. We've heard some good things, but he's the one guy we've seen out of everybody that's come that's actually played in this system with him and all those things. At the end of the day, though, I also would say this. I agree with you. Maybe the Washington system wasn't his cup of tea, right? Didn't fit him, all those things. There are still plenty of plays in college football, in the trenches, where it comes down to it is me versus you. And it is me and you one on one, and I gotta do my job. And when I see a guy that's playing Cal, Arizona, Oregon, and Arizona State as a starter, and you have average numbers, and I'm supposed to believe that you're going to come in and start against Tennessee, Ole Miss, Alabama, right? On and on and on, and not have worse numbers and all the stuff, it's hard for me to believe that because the talent discrepancy on that end is so much different. Now, maybe he develops, maybe the system fits, all the different things. I'm very worried about the offensive line. I've been very clear about that. But we'll see how the scheme changes, all the stuff. Either way, you needed depth. He comes from a quality program, as you stated. Those are positives. He knows what it looks like to win. He knows what it looks like to be a part of a big time program. Again, you could do a lot worse, and you need bodies in that room right now for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like I said, it's a good pickup. I
Yeah.
get what you're saying. I mean, again, I think we have to defer judgment until, like I said, we get further into spring, maybe, and then we'll have
Mhm.
some at least closer to having an answer, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that's been going on, and again, I want to repeat, I didn't say in our intro like I normally do. We are not reporters and we are not insiders. We occasionally get to have some athletes on and do interviews with them. We, do that kind of stuff. But they did just have a junior day this weekend. So I just preface this by I'm not going to go through and tell you the 5 guys that sat down and cried with BV in his office, right? Or whatever. But they
Mhm.
did have a huge junior day. Will Fong and other big national writers writing a lot of articles this last week about the haul of junior guys that came in for this weekend for OU. That's positive number one. When these guys come like this, they're coming on their own dime. They're coming to be a part of it all. That is huge for OU. And some really big talents. And by all accounts, and I say this every time, as it should be, went very well. Went very, very, very well. Recruits liked it, all the stuff. And you do continue to hear, yes, NIL matters, but I'm going to continue to say, and I do believe this part, that NIL just needs to catch up to the soul mission stuff. That is one thing that every athlete comes away from these visits talking about. And it is a selling point for OU. I just don't think it's quite as powerful as the almighty dollar. But I'm hoping as well too. It seems that OU has tried to put more emphasis financially as well into high school recruiting. So hopefully we see that pay off as the rest of the recruiting goes. Which, by the way, I believe OU right now is third or fourth on most services in the 2025 class. So they're off to a blazing hot start, and hopefully that can continue down the tracks.
Yeah, I mean, I I guess that's something we could talk about is, there's been a lot of stuff that's happened where people are like, oh, OU's broke or they're not spending the money with NIL. And,
Right.
I don't really think that's the case, but I also think it's again, it's one of those things that's more nuanced than people want to let on. Right. I do think there's instances where they're not willing to go spend $1 million on a guy just because, you know, he's a decent football player, right?
Mhm.
Or whatever. So I think there's a little bit of that. I think it's just a little bit of some of it. It is a little bit of a culture thing, and I think that's what I want to like. I think what people have to kind of circle back to, and maybe this is me being a sunshine pumper, but it's like you can see certain programs already since NIL's become a thing where they throw NIL around like crazy, and then their culture doesn't really follow that, right?
Yeah.
So it's like they have a lot of success for a year or two, and then all of a sudden the wheels fall off, right? Because you don't have the culture to back that up. And I think BV's, I guess, appears from the outside, right? I think he's trying to lay the foundation for a stronger culture before
Yeah.
they start really ramping that up. And and you see a lot of that already. Like you see, like it does seem like you have guys that are like again proud to be an Oklahoma guy, right? Like David
Mhm.
Stone's been very public and tweeted all the time about how he's proud to be Oklahoman and
Yeah.
or be an Oklahoma guy and all that stuff. So but yeah, we'll see how it plays out like with all that stuff. But again, um the junior day stuff is exciting.
Hmm.
BV and his staff, like you can look at the staff and you can critique a number of things, and that's fine. With it being like I said, NIL or administration, whatever you want to critique, but it's like, dude, they have a name. Like you continuously hear
Yeah.
guys that aren't even committed to OU talking about like how they love BV, right?
Hmm.
So it's one of those things that I think he has built. Like his name speaks volumes, and it goes back to, not that we're not insiders or reporters, but it goes back to BV's name holds a lot of weight with high school coaches,
Yes.
right? Where there's coaches that would have a moderate amount of success, but then you would talk to a high school coach and like, dude, that guy's kind of a jerk, or they didn't really like him. They
Oh,
didn't want
there's.
to,
Oh yeah.
and I'm sure you know about some of the people I'm talking about, but
Yes.
so I think BV has that name where when he shows up, people give him respect, and he deserves respect.
Yeah. I mean, look, we uh we have been lucky enough to meet some high school coaches because of this podcast and converse with some of them and all those different things. And yeah, there's definitely coach names that, I mean, multiple coaches. Tom Herman, jerk. I mean,
Yeah.
that was out there, and that wasn't just an OU thing. It was just like the guy, like, his crap doesn't stink, and it's a little frustrating to work with him, and others don't. And I agree with you. He
I
has that. And so we'll see. I think what's going to be fascinating to watch too is I'm going to really get people mad. This wasn't the notes. Let me really get people riled up. How about this? If Missouri has another year like they had,
mm-hmm.
I think you have found the model that's the right model, because they are spending money in NIL, no doubt. But when you really look at how they're doing it, they are recruiting guys and bringing them in. And then let's think about the players that they really spent money on. Who is that going to be? Luther Burden, right? When he came out of high school. Now, remember also, though, Luther was coming to OU until Lincoln left. And then Luther had to find another place, and Missouri's close to home, right? You've got Noweri. They went and blew a bunch of money on. You got Caden Green. They went and blew a bunch of money on. And there was one transfer guy that they got that I remember was a big, that wasn't Cade, somebody else. But when you piece it together, it's not like Ole Miss where like the top 6 transfer people, they were just blowing cash on, right? A&M buying 8 of the top 10 guys and bringing them all in. Like, Missouri has been very calculated in who they go after and who they get. And honestly, it worked to their advantage really well last year. Now, their strength of schedule, all that stuff, I get it. But if it works out this year for them, this might be the formula. And this has kind of been that discussion, right? Is yes, recruit. Yes, lay your foundation. But dadgummit, I think where OU fans are mad is we all know the weakness on this team right now. I think every OU fan would say this defense should be very good. We believe the quarterback has the potential to be very good. We believe the wide receivers are for days. And you went and got one of the best portal wide receivers you could get. We believe the running back room is stacked. Line is the only thing. And the 2 or 3 guys that were out there available for you to get, you went, we don't really want to bust up the culture. And it's like, okay, man, like I get it, but you're telling me you evaluated all 3 of them and you felt like not one of the 3 was worth throwing a bag at to solidify this offensive line for your redshirt freshman quarterback.
Well, I think you also, I mean, okay, I agree with you, but I think you also have to take a step back. And I think this is one of those things that, especially with some of the stuff that's come out recently. I know we're going to talk about some of this in a little bit. The thing that everything revolving around NIL, the NCAA, just college athletics in general, with all this money that's floating around, and pretty much everybody unanimously has come out and said, like, guardrails or something have to be put in place,
Yeah.
right? Now I know like Gabe and Teddy, they were talking about it, and it was an interesting take that they thought, like somebody like Nick Saban could step in as like a quote unquote commissioner of college football or something along those lines. I was like, pretty much everybody would be for that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you have to do something. And I think again, I think that's where it goes back to the formula is going to keep changing as these things happen, as the things evolve, as things keep happening. So I think you're right. I think Mizzou's doing a good thing, but it's going to come down to, are they going to have a good season? Because I still think last year is like, when you look at it, it's like outside of their bowl game, which I don't even remember who they even played. I just remember that there was some absences from the opposing team.
Yes.
They pretty much, anybody that had more than a pulse,
Yeah.
they got pretty beat up by, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to say that they're not a fluke of a team, but again, if they go out and have a 9 or 10 win season, it's going to be hard to keep saying that. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I do agree with you to some degree. I think OU. I honestly, I don't think OU's that far off, but I think it's just like, I agree with what you're saying, but I also think it's you know uh there's more nuance, there's more details to that we don't know about, I'm sure.
Sure.
So in a way, I'm kind of okay with it. I wish we could get some guys, but to some degree, I understand that there's just things that I'm just going to have to throw trust at BV and staff for, because defensively, like you said, they've killed it. Every other position group, they've killed it,
Yeah.
right? So,
Which is the other thing that is weird, right? Like you have not had any trouble getting transfer safeties. You've not
mhm,
had any trouble getting transfer corners, transfer
right,
linebackers, transfer defensive ends. Like you have gotten you got the best wide receiver transfer. You got a
right.
transfer running back. You are grabbing transfers all over the place except offensive line. And that is what just mind boggles me. That's what I
So I mean, again, I think that's where it's like, is it Bill Beatonbow carries a name, right? That's another Bill Beatonbow. We
you
hear
would
his
think
name.
so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to is it character issues? Is it culture not a culture fit? I don't know. Like I said, there's probably variables there we don't know. So again, we'll wait and see. But yeah, I do agree with you. The thing is, everybody's trying to figure it out,
Yeah.
right? Like, you've seen A&M, you've seen Ole Miss. I know a lot of people are scared of Ole Miss because Ole Miss basically went and bought everybody that they
Gosh,
possibly
dude.
could. It seems.
If all those guys
Um,
hit what people think their potential is or in the ballpark, Ole Miss is that's a problem.
yeah. And then we've already seen. We one thing I don't even think we have in the flow that just kind of came to mind, but it's like, you also have, what's crazy is we have seen some weird shifts, like um, you know, I forget his name, the Arizona coach,
Oh, Jed Fish, yeah.
Jed Fish. He left Arizona to go to Washington and try
Washington.
to take everybody with him, and everybody was like, nah.
Yeah.
Um, so and apparently the way he left was very Lincoln Riley esque, I would say.
That's the way it
Uh,
felt by the players. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I get, like, I had this argument with somebody in the Discord about it. I recall this now, of like, because apparently he only spoke for like a minute or two and then left.
Hmm.
Um, and I was like, look, I understand that he doesn't need to get up there and give an hour long speech about why he took the job and give every detail about everything, right? But it's like, to me, you're still, as a head coach, even as the modern day of it being about money and all that stuff, you need to stand up and own things and answer questions and kind of, do what you need to do before you step out, because you're the leader of these guys. A lot of these guys are, parents and families have given you
Yeah.
their children to be essentially a father figure for their kid for 3, 4, 5, however many years. And,
Well, and that's, again,
but
I've never been a college football coach, so I mean, understand that. But, I was a youth pastor at a church for 12 years. I mean, I had students that their brothers and sisters came through my ministry, went out, I'd known them for all this time. When I told them that I was moving to Massachusetts and leaving, I didn't walk in, say, "Hey guys, I know the word," which the rumor was already going around. Everybody already kind of knew. It always gets out, right? This is what's going down, just the way it goes. See you later. No, like what I don't understand is like I can't understand how you're around people that much. And like, look, if you just say, "Look, man, big opportunity, I had to take it." Like And I know some of you are going to be mad, but I had to take it. That's all your speech needs to be. But you know what? You can spend 30 minutes staying in there and shaking hands of guys and saying, thank you for coming to Arizona when other guys wouldn't. You know, thank you for putting the work in here and that I'm getting this opportunity because you took the time to invest in this program. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand how coaches don't do that. There's guys in that room you should be giving a hug to and going, this sucks that I don't get to be here with you the next year and a half to 2 years, right? All the stuff. And I don't know if there's some kind of NCAA rule that actually prevents that, but I just don't believe that. I don't believe that for a
I mean,
second.
again, I think it's one of those things, like you said, you give I'm fine for the speech being a minute or two,
Yes.
but it's like, like, hey, like, I'll open the floor so anybody can ask me questions if you need, whatever shit, like you said, do a little bit of appeasement, I guess, on your way out. And then, like I said, him trying to poach basically everybody from there and kind of
Yeah.
everybody being like, no, we're good. And then now you have DeBoer leaving there and going to Washington to Alabama. And then that's a whole chaos.
Yeah.
It's like, what? I don't think it was on my bingo card that Washington, a coach from Washington going to Alabama and Nick Saban retiring would cause this much chaos in college football. That was not on my bingo card. Like, none
No.
of those things are on my bingo card.
No. It's been wild.
So, but yeah, again, that's what I'm to circle back again. I think it's my point being with where we are with college football, with recruiting, with NIL, with the transfer portal and everything. For one, it keeps evolving. The rules keep changing. The goalposts are constantly changing. That's why I think nobody's been able to figure out exactly, outside of maybe you could say Georgia, who's who's nailed down how to do it, right?
Mhm.
And even Georgia, I don't really think is it's just Kirby Smart knows how to freaking evaluate and develop. That's the key. Um, and the same really with Nick Saban. Everybody wants to say Nick Saban, they didn't have the year I think they wanted, even though they went to the playoffs. But when you look at it, it's like, dude, it's the same thing. They just get guys and they develop them. So um yeah, I do. It's going to be interesting to see how this next few years how it's going to play out, because I saw a deal like Tennessee. I think the state of Tennessee and like South Carolina are suing the NCAA now for NIL stuff, saying it's antitrust law, and I don't know. Like, we're in this
Yeah.
weird timeline of
Weird stuff.
chaos.
Yeah. It's all kind of funky. So, well, let's finish out on the OU side of things. We were gonna talk general football next, but the last thing with OU football is winter workouts have begun. According to social media, the boys are out working hard, dragging sleds, running, jumping, doing all the things. Jared, we didn't learn anything from the 15-second video other than it does appear that the off-season theme was announced. I don't know if you noticed it or not. All the guys wearing a shirt that says tough. TOUGF, tough, right? And that was even kind of the closing caption, right, to the video and all that stuff. So my question is, that's obviously what they're going with. If you had been in charge of the off-season workout theme for OU this year, like, for example, last year, if you listen to the players as the season got going, the theme was 49-0. That was the theme. Schmitty had them do 49 medicine ball sit-ups to close out every workout, to remind them that they lost 49-0, which explains a little bit why the season built to Texas and then fell off the face of the earth a little bit afterwards, right? So what would you have made the theme for the offseason?
And I don't know, to put it in like a word. I mean, honestly, tough is pretty good. I like that, but potential. That's what I would have, potential, because
Hmm.
this team has a lot of potential. Maybe like recognizing potential or something, like something along that vein. I don't know what word you
Okay.
want to use,
Hmm.
but there's a ton of potential. Everybody knows that. You've seen Danny Stutzman, you've seen Billy Bowman. They're both coming back. They've already shown what they can do. Them maximizing that potential. You've seen Even Javante Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk, Jackson Arnold. You know, I mean, this team is literally just absolutely just filled with potential. I mean, literally you go
Mm,
through every group and there's guys that are even like they've already showed how good they are. And it's like you look at them and you're like, there's probably a lot left in them.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So again, Jackson Arnold didn't have a great bowl game. We can't like frame it any other way, but it's like, dude, you also watch him throw the ball and you're like, the potential there is freaking sky high.
Mm,
The dude can sling it. So yeah, something along those lines. Potential, maybe. I don't know.
gotcha, gotcha. Um, Tough is not bad, and I know you're gonna laugh at this, and I know the crowd that listens to this podcast is gonna laugh at this, and you're gonna make all kinds of little jokes, but I'll explain. I think I would have done like hard, like hardened, something like that. And here's why. Here's what if I was in charge, this is the shirt I would make them wear to workouts every day. Here's the shirt I would have made them wear to workout every day. It would have been TP soft. That's what my shirt would be because you look at every loss this team had, it was turnovers and penalties. Turnovers and penalties lost this team every game this season, every single one. And because they were not mentally hard enough to keep their mind in the game to do what they're supposed to do, they lost games. And because they don't hang on to the ball enough, they lost games because they did not want to be what they needed to be in those moments.
Right.
I mean, I would have come out, I would have filled some kind of, I don't even know what you would do. I'd made them do something with toilet paper at the end of every workout to say, because you were soft, you were too soft holding the ball. You were too soft catching the ball. You were too soft when it came time to be in crunch time. I'd have done a Charmin shirt, something like that, and said, if you don't want me to call you Charmin, then don't turn over the ball and don't get penalties. I'd have done something like that. So I see you just dying. Like you've
Yeah.
got one liners
Yeah,
galore you're ready to throw.
I think Brent Venables would have been on his knees or whatever it was he said at that press conference.
Yeah.
Um, Good Lord. Yeah, I'm sorry. There's just too much. I'm too much of a degenerate to not sit here and giggle at.
What was it that he did say something like that? And it was Stutzman and all
He's like,
them were
yeah,
like,
there's all
whoa.
those points for on our knees. And Danny was like, he was like eyeballing him, he was side eyeing him.
Like
Um,
just insert and go, you know,
yeah,
or whatever he said.
yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't, I agree with you on that. I mean, the turnovers and penalties were huge. Um, and you're gonna have to be. I mean, that's just the thing is what people have to realize, and this is what's gonna be crazy. And I know we're a long ways away. This offseason's huge for a number of reasons. But one of which is, like I said, we're both kind of right. Like they need to recognize all that potential they have and reach it, right?
Right.
And the other thing is they have to be tough about it. They have to be tough. They have to be mentally focused every game because when you go in the SEC, you don't get a bye week, right?
Uh-uh.
Like it's not like, oh, we're rolling in to play whoever.
You play the game you played against Cincinnati and you lose. And you don't just lose, you lose big, right?
Right.
Um you play the game that you played against UCF. You lose big, right? Even the game against Kansas that you did lose, right? But you lose by 50 if you're going to play like that in the SEC. So they better figure it out.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot more painful of an experience, right? So but yeah, we'll see. Like I said, I am excited. It's gonna be fun. It's good to see that they're spinning that stuff up already. So hopefully we'll get more videos. I love the multimedia team for Oklahoma Athletics is just
They do
next
great.
level.
And I love this time of year because we will here pretty soon start to get the reports out of the freshmen and what their 40s were, what their verticals were, those kinds of things. And I think that's a huge thing. Look, at almost every single football player coming out of high school that gets a Division 1 offer is a better athlete than everyone around them. Get them here. Let the laser time them, not coach with his his clock in his hand where he's like, oh, 4-4 sounds good, right? Like, and like makes it like get them on the laser system and let's see where you're really at. Like, let's get on the bench and see where you're really at. Let's get you on a vert pad and let's really see where you're at. And that really tells a lot of tale. Like, again, you can be not an elite athlete and still be a great college player. But let's be real, it's a lot easier to be an elite college player if you've got elite athleticism. And we'll find out some of these guys what they really look like and what they're all about. So, moving off of OU football that's in off season, it is full basketball season. OU drops 2 really bad games. The Texas game was brutal with a sold out crowd. Place was electric, just couldn't pull it together. Tech, it looked like they had found their way, that they were going, and then just cratered down the stretch of that game and lost a heartbreaker at home. So 2 home losses. You're super worried about them going on the road to Kansas State, who's not a great team, but still, it's a road game in the Big 12. What's going to happen? And they drop a 20-point victory. Was just that was a
It's
much needed win for OU basketball.
Yeah, it's been the story of like free throws. Like I don't know what their free throw
Oh
percentage
man,
is, but
they
like there's
missed
been so many.
11 straight at one point the other night.
Yeah, it's it's funny because it's like again I played high school ball or whatever for a year. But like I played basketball. I remember playing basketball growing up through school, and I remember I think it was like in junior high or something. We had something like that happen where we like missed a bunch of free throws, and I remember literally our coach like the next practice was like he literally just we're not doing anything, we're not running drills. Everybody go find a goal and you're shooting free throws until you make 20 in a
Yeah,
row or whatever. It's like, bro, I hope Moser's doing something just as simple as that because like
yeah,
there's no excuse to miss free throws. It's free. It's a free throw. Like
yeah.
it's supposed to be free points. So so I'm interested to see how that's going to play. But yeah, it's been heartbreaking the Texas game, especially Texas. God, their coach. How does
Oh,
Texas? Can we just? I'm going to give kudos. I'm going to give kudos to the University of Texas. How is it that they're able to go find like they get rid of a coach that nobody likes, and they're able to go find a coach that people like even less? Like like
well,
uh, like to
I
be
mean,
honest, like Sarkeesian is probably the exception to that. But it's like really when you think about it, it's like nobody likes their softball coach.
oh,
Nobody
he's
liked
a
their
jerk.
previous basketball coach. Nobody likes their current basketball. You know what I mean? Like nobody, like every other coach, it feels like that's at Texas, nobody likes.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think it's just that culture. I mean, the culture shifted years ago. I mean, when think about it, Mac Brown, you can say what you want, but when Mac Brown was there in his final years, he was the mouthpiece of Texas athletics, right? Like
Mhm.
he was the guy. And when that guy sets the tone of people should stop doing horns down to us because it hurts our feelings, well, everybody's going to jump on that culture, right? They so jumped on the culture that they got a conference to change a rule. They literally got a conference to make a rule. And I loved what somebody said the other day. How is it that this is taunting, right? But this is not taunting. So if Texas is doing great and does this, it's not a penalty. It's not an issue. Nobody can go and gripe about it, right? But if you do this, oh, now we got all kinds of problems and issues,
It,
right?
this is the funny thing, and this is the way you and I feel like you and I grew up. With the various sports we play, we both you and I had a lot of the same coaches and stuff growing up, or athletic stuff growing up. It was if you don't want somebody to rub it in your face, beat them. That was the
Yeah.
answer. If you don't want somebody, like we both went to Ada, right? And so McAllister, and there's all that thing. If you don't want them,
Ardmore, yeah,
if you don't
Durant,
want if you don't want the the flag, the
yeah,
POTAC flag or whatever, you don't want them yelling that or chanting that, shut them up.
yeah,
That's your answer.
yeah,
You don't go crying saying, "Well, I don't like that they're saying that." Just beat them. And that's the thing is like it was a deal with UCF. It's like if you don't want UCF throwing horns down, then beat them. And then they don't. They can't.
yeah,
If they do, they look like idiots and they're just
yeah,
going to self roast themselves.
yeah.
That's the answer. And again, yeah, you're right. That whole culture shift has been
Oh, it's sad, man. It really, and I can't wait because the SEC don't care.
no.
Like I cannot wait for Texas fans to go to LSU. I cannot wait for Texas fans to go to Baton Rouge and play in a game because there's going to be a lot more than horns down thrown in their faces and everywhere else, and they ain't going to care. The refs ain't going to care. The conference ain't going to care. They're going to have to pony up. Anyways, terrible loss. Hated it. But they did bounce back, beat KSU, and that is a big win. To get a road win in the Big 12 is a big deal. And I think it does show this, and we've said this, you and I think, have been on the same page. People stop dooming, okay? Stop, like, I know I got the nickname Dark Daryl, but I also think the things that I'm dark about have some validity to them at most of the time, right? Look, I understand that they ranked this team at one point in the top 10. We all know this is not a top 10 team. Okay, we have said that from the get-go. They were on a great run, and it was nice. They're not a top 10 team. But here's what it showed. If you go look at the numbers of that game, they were not very glowing for OU. But their defense was so good that it kept them at a 20-point. If you would have read the stats, you don't think they win by 20. If you watch the game and watch the defense they played, you go, okay, I kind of see how they won by 20, right? So, but all that to say, I think K-State is a decent team. I think it's a team that's on the bubble of making the tournament. OU beats them by 20, right? You play Texas Tech, who, by the way, is the number one team in the Big 12 right now, and you lose by 2 on your home floor. Well, guess what? You're probably a top 15-ish, top 20-ish team. And when you can beat the teams that aren't that great by 20, that's about where you fall, right? Like you're in that. Like if we had to go to Tech, we probably get beat by 8, right? Playing them at home, we're right there for a team that's really, really good. Texas was a top 10 preseason team. And honestly, to the last 3 minutes of that game, you're right in the middle of it with them the whole way down. So you're right there. If they're playing great, they can beat anybody, but they have to play great to beat anybody. If they're playing decent, they can play the bottom. They can beat the bottom feeders.
And here I'm gonna go on a little bit a very short rant because there was a whole discussion about the Texas game. Well, Oklahoma's lost to Texas 5 times in a row or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, we have to understand that when Moser came in, it was clear that there was culture issues or personnel issues. There was a whole lot of things that Moser had to overcome in a short amount of time. So it's like I'm not giving him necessarily just a free pass, but it's like at least 2 to 3 of those games you can't really hold over his head because we kind of knew like Texas at that point was top of their game, and OU wasn't. Like so, if they had beat them in those 5 games, the 4 games previous, it's kind of a miracle, right? So yeah, while you did lose this one and it hurts, it's not like there's this huge systemic problem and we got to fire everybody and clean the entire staff out and we've got to clear everything out. It's like, no, it was a bad loss. Move on. They got to play Texas again. Maybe they get a win. Maybe they don't. But again, this team, where it is now, like you said it perfectly, it's a top 25 team. Yes. Even we'll just say that it's top 25 team, which I don't know that anybody really would have said that about. You would have really been thinking that about OU's men's basketball.
Hey, preseason, my hope was to make the tournament, be in the top 64. Because remember, this team did not make the tournament last year. They did I don't think they even got an NIT invite last year, did they?
I don't think so. Yeah, they were pretty bad last year.
Like it was terrible. They're a top 25 team. So he has done a good job of building the roster and getting it where it needs to be. And look, this is where I do think things are hard. When you bring in a bunch of transfers like OU has, when you are in crunch games like this in the Big 12 night in and night out, and you're not used to guys, you don't know how they react in that moment. You don't know how they're going to move here or react to that. Like there is, in basketball especially, there is a feel to the game of basketball of just knowing when a guy's going to cut, of just knowing when a guy's got a hot hand, knowing when a guy's making good decisions, all those things. When a guy's going to switch off a screen, all that. And they're figuring all that out. Like, look, this team could crawl itself up to, 15 to 10. But again, I think what you look at and say that is good is you lose 2 heartbreakers at home and then you go on the road in the Big 12 and you win by 20. I think that says a lot about this team.
And again, another thing that you have to circle with this team, as we've talked about it, the things that have been they've struggled with that have hurt them are things that are easily correctable. It's not like you're getting out athleted every game. right? It's not
Right.
like you just don't have the size or the length or anything like that. It's like you're just missing free throws. That's a very correctable thing to fix. So,
Turnovers and free throws. That's been their Achilles heel, no doubt,
right. Yeah.
throughout the
So,
season. On another note of surprise, and I will admit it, last year we talked about the women's basketball team a lot because they were kind of a great story, right? Going through everything. This year, before the season starts, what many considered their best player goes out with a knee injury for the season. You go, uh-oh, that's not great. They struggle in the non-conference against some teams that they should, you would think, just wipe the floor with. I believe they lost their opening game in Big 12 play, and you kind of just went, like their best players out. Jenny's still kind of building the roster, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? They've now won, I believe is it 7 or 8 straight? I'm not sure. It's one of those two.
yeah, I
Um,
don't.
but they have won 7 or 8 straight in Big 12 play, and they now sit atop of the Big 12 standings again, beating the team that had the number one spot tonight.
And was like the number 2 or 3 team in the nation.
Yeah. I mean, like, folks, Josie, pay that woman her money. Pay that woman her money. She earned it. Jenny B, dude, they are going to have to fight to keep a hold of her because this is the best coaching job she has ever done. What she's doing with this team right now.
Which, I here's some kudos I'll give. And it does seem to have shifted around the time NIL and stuff. Maybe that's part of it, but the basketball program as a whole, like the basketball men and women's basketball program, are getting so much more attention than they've gotten in a long time. Like since when Buddy healed, or like it's like there was always it always felt like with OU it was like every 6 or 7 years you would have somebody come along that drew a lot of attention to like the men's basketball team or the women's basketball team, right? Like you had Blake Griffin and then Buddy Healed and then Trey Young, right? And it's like those years you would have a lot of attention, then it just kind of fade away into obscurity. And it's like the
Mm-hmm.
one thing I'd give them, and maybe it's partially to Moser too, and Jenny B, but it's like they're consistently getting attention. Even last year when they weren't that good, it's like they were getting crowds to come into the Lloyd Noble Center, and it's like the
The
Lloyd Noble's been empty by
right.
for years. So
Well, I think it's right. Like, let's be honest, the women's program for a long time was terrible. That's why what Jenny's doing is incredible. I mean, again, Jenny took a roster that Sherry Cole had and took them to a Big 12 championship, right?
yeah,
Like, I mean, so she took what she already had and she's winning. And look, OU fans will follow a winning product. Jenny B is giving you a winning product. I'm telling you right now, I'm promising you, you need to go watch women's basketball if you are one of those that can do that because you think that it's, a sport, unlike some people on local radio who I can't because it's not even a real sport, which is bullcrap. But if you need to, Jenny Baranchek's going to be a name in college basketball for a long time. Not only like actively coaching, when she gets done coaching, she is going to be a name that's talked to. She has won everywhere she's gone, no matter what has happened. But again, Porter Moser has put in a ton of work to get the fans to show up. Jenny's got a winning product. Now Moser's got a winning product. They are putting in a product that people want to see. They put in the work, support it, keep it going. It is fun to see people there and riling it up and going. So we got to keep moving down this list, working our way through. A couple of general college football things that happened that we haven't had a chance to talk about. Harbaugh is out at Michigan and is headed to the Los Angeles Chargers, which I don't know why, but trying to picture Jim Harbaugh living in Los Angeles just doesn't.
I mean
I don't know.
He lived in Northern
The,
California for years.
I know, but now that I know the dorky, goofy, pleated khaki pant Harbaugh, I
Can
I
I can
don't
I
know how that works.
can I ask you something about the whole deal? Because I'm gonna give my hot take really, and then I'll ask you.
Oh my god.
I think Harbaugh is not a good human being.
Oh.
Yeah,
Ooh.
I think he's kind of I won't say he's a good not a good human being, but I think he's very deceptive. Because it's like, look, bro, like everybody, it was so obvious, right? Like you're gonna take a job at wherever in the NFL, right? Apparently Michigan like backed the bus up, was gonna offer him like 12 mil a year to stay at Michigan.
Sure.
So if you're turning down those sorts of numbers, that it's to basically have full control over a what right now is a top tier college football program, you knew you were going to the NFL.
Sure.
So why not just say that? Why not give it after the game,
Well,
after the national championship's over? You say nothing. You're just like,
well,
well,
because
no.
okay, I totally disagree. Because look, what would he have said after their last game last year?
What do you mean?
If you'd asked him the question, "Are you going to the NFL?" What would he have answered in the way that you're wanting him to answer it? What should his answer have been last year after their last game?
I mean,
Did he interview with Minnesota?
yeah,
Did he think he had the job?
I don't know.
He did. Matter of fact, there were reports out that Harbaugh was hired at Minnesota because it went so well. Then they only found out that the other guy they interviewed blew them away more than Harbaugh, and they decided not to go with Harbaugh. So I say that to say, like, he can't do that. What do you think happens to recruiting? What do you think happens to
Okay,
NIL
I
if
I
if if he goes through all those interviews and he says, "I want to go to the NFL," and then no one hires him? It just doesn't work out.
I mean,
No,
I guess to me, it's not like you have to say, well, I want to go to the NFL. I don't want him to have to answer that way, but I also think you have to like it's not hard to give an answer of, like I'm exploring options or whatever. Right. Like we'll see what happens. Instead of saying, well, I'm just happy to the happiest man in the world or whatever the hell he says. The cheesiest thing. I like he's just a cheesy dude. He gets on my nerves. I also don't think when it comes to the NFL, I just don't understand the love affair with him.
he's been
Right.
successful.
He went to the Niners and he had that good season. And outside of that, it's like, I mean, I know they went all the way to the Super Bowl, right? That's crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
But it's like outside of that, they were a dumpster fire. And the players came out and didn't like him. They openly stated they did not like playing for Jim Harbaugh. And the reason is when you go to a 19-year-old kid and you're like, oh, like I used to walk to school barefoot in the snow, and my dad just said we're the happiest people on earth. That's one thing. When you go to a 25, 30-year-old guy and you're telling him these cheesy stories, like nobody cares.
Well, sure. But again, I mean, I don't know, man. All I know is the dude is won everywhere he's been. You cannot deny that. I can't like look, man, I made fun of Michigan for hiring him. I did. I was like, I don't, NFL guy, yay, it's not gonna work. He won. He won. I mean, he's won it all. He's been to a Super Bowl. I mean, how many coaches can say that? Like, look at what he did with Alex Smith. Like, he literally saved Alex Smith's career. Like, saved it. Now, granted, things fell off after that, but let's also be real. He is the one who found Colin Kaepernick when he was normal and got him to perform at a really high level. And then the minute that he started getting swept up with all the off the field stuff, his whole career just plummeted, right? So, I mean, it's not like he found a guy that I think if he would have just, and look, I want to be very careful on what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you should not speak out about anything that you consider as injustice or a social issue. Like, I think you're allowed to do that as an athlete. I do. I am not a shut up and dribble kind of guy. I just don't buy into that. But if you don't keep the main thing, which is, okay, I get to talk about these things because I am great at what I do, right? Then it all falls apart. And Colin Kaepernick forgot how to be great as a quarterback. He decided to not improve, and that was ultimately his demise. Was that he sent Alex Smith packing and went with Kaepernick, who, remember, there are tons of these NFL experts that were talking about Colin Kaepernick was going to be a Hall of Famer after his 2 years with a year and a half with Harbaugh, right? So I just feel like he got a bad deal. And again, his brother, he's now got to watch lead the Ravens very well through the last couple of years. And so maybe he's learned. I agree he's cheesy and weird. I wouldn't want to play for him. Not because I think he's a bad coach, just because he's weird. He's really, and at the same time, My college track coach is one of the weirdest guys I've ever been around in my life, and the dude has more national titles than I can even like. I
Well,
don't even
and
know how
like
many he won.
and like here's the thing. Like let me like be clear too, because like I think I know what you're saying, and I don't want to again go down to the path too much. I agree with you. I think the issue with Harbaugh, because like you said, you can circle Colin Kaepernick as a big thing to that, and that's a controversial thing in itself, right?
Yeah,
And I think I agree with you. It's keep the main thing the main thing. Like if you're performing, at the end of the day, we all have a job to do,
right,
right? And your
right,
job is to play football and play quarterback. If you're not doing that at a top level organization,
right.
if I'm working for Google, right, or whatever giant tech firm, right, as you know, a systems engineer or whatever, and I'm the best at what I do, then I can probably I have the power to say like, I don't really like that,
Yeah,
right? But if all of a sudden I'm middling or bad at my job, they're not gonna want to keep paying me. And you know
right,
what? I'm not gonna be able to go down the road to Facebook or whatever. I mean, that's what happened. But
right.
again,
Well,
to go
like,
back to
look,
Harbaugh,
to get it even off of just to be clear, take the spotlight even off of Kaepernick for a minute. Let's give another example. Baker Mayfield. I don't think that Baker Mayfield will, maybe not unless he has a long career, but like let's say this year did not go well in Tampa Bay for him, and a team says, "Oh, we want to sign a backup quarterback." I don't think you sign Baker, and not because he speaks out about social justice issues, but because he's a lightning rod, right? And you don't want your backup middling quarterback
mhm.
being the thing that is constantly being talked about and stirred up and causing issues. And well, what about Baker? What about Baker? Baker did this. Baker did. No team wants to deal with
Well,
it.
and again, that to take it off of sports again, if you have a job to do, it doesn't matter if you're a pro athlete or you're a guy that picks up the trash,
Right.
right? If you're not doing your job at a level that's at least acceptable for whatever level of organization or job or whatever you're doing, you have to forego other liberties, or not liberties, but like it's a luxury to be able to
Yeah. Be
speak out
careful
in
there,
those circumstances.
libertarian. Don't say liberties. That'd
Yeah,
be
whatever. But you know what I mean? Like you have to like it's again, if I'm the best guy at my job and I've worked myself up into that position, that's how the system works.
yep.
That means that I have a little bit more play. If I'm not very good or I'm barely making it by, then I don't need to shake the boat. I don't need to
Right.
rock the boat and make a
Right.
bunch of waves. So,
100%.
but again, to go to Harbaugh, it's an interesting thing. The Michigan, I don't know. I feel bad because I know you man is taking the lead of the ship.
Yep. Sharon
Sharon Moore.
Moore. Hey, congratulations. He
Yep.
earned it. Excited. But I'm with you. I'm scared for Sharon.
I I'm gonna be honest with you, dude. I I, I don't think there's gonna be like a death penalty, but I think Michigan's about to get hammered.
I see. I don't. I mean, they'll slap him on the wrist. That's the most it's going to be. Look, there's enough already out there to make a decision, right? This feels exactly like the Kansas Jayhawk paying players through Adidas stuff. We got wiretaps of him saying, "Yeah, get him 25K," like saying how much money is out there, and then they got what? Like, did they got nothing? And OSU, who says, "Hey, we found out we had a coach doing this. Here's all the evidence, and we'll hand it to you," got kicked out of the freaking tournament. And so, look, Michigan, nobody like look at nobody even talked about it during the playoffs. It never got brought up. It never got discussed. We know
It
all the
was
things they did. They're not going to do jack squat to
but
Michigan.
again, and this goes back to my point of I don't think I shouldn't say I think Harbaugh's a terrible person. I don't think he's a terrible person. I don't think he's as good of a person as what's advertised. Right?
Sure.
There's a lot of deception there. There was the like again, this is again, I don't want to go down a huge road with Michigan. There's the number of recruiting violations that have already come out as happened. Now there's more being investigated. You still have the sign stealing thing. And people try to say, well, the sign everybody tries to steal signs. Look, I get it. I understand what you're saying because there's fact to that. There's nothing illegal about stealing signs. If you can watch the coach across from you,
And
he
figure
wiggles
it
his ear
out. You
three
figure it
times and
out.
that
Yeah.
means a blitz, that you can use that to your advantage. Right. The problem is, but equating that to having this entire system that you've
Yes.
elaborated to send people to other teams' games, to steal their signs. Not only that, in disguise at some points.
Yeah.
And then for Jim Harbaugh to be like, well, I didn't know that happened. Come on. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't born yesterday, bro.
I
Like,
know. But look,
and
I would also say this. I doesn't excuse any of it. But the I think I think where Jim Harbaugh is at, if you remember, what was it, like 3, 4 years ago, where him and Ryan Day almost got like in a verbal shouting match at like a Big Ten media day because Harbaugh was being asked a question. He said, well, if I actually got to let my players practice 4 hours above and beyond what the practice requirement time is for compliance, we might actually be a little better. And Ryan Day got livid, right? But what was he saying? You're cheating. Like, they're telling me I can't do this. You have found a way to get your university to say it's okay. Let's be honest for a second. How are Alabama and Georgia on top of the world right now? Do we really think that they didn't start NIL until NIL started? Is that what we think? Well, that's not it. I mean, let's talk about the fact that Kirby Smart has people dead. Dead because he let them just go do whatever they wanted with staff members drunk driving. Like, how many do they have? Like 7 like driving violations like in 1 month, like as a program. Like, they're all scumbags to some degree. They all bend the rules to some degree. And I'm not saying that excuses Harbaugh, but I mean, for years, Harbaugh, all he heard was you can't beat Ohio State, who was also a team that was throwing bags around before NIL was around. And I think he just got sick of it and said, screw it. I'm not going to cheat paying kids, and I'm not going to cheat this way or whatever. I'll just figure out your science,
what it comes down to, I think the thing people really have to realize is, and this is why I think it needs to be, it's still not going to stop it. You're never going to stop it, but I think this would make it better. There needs to be guardrails put in place. There needs to be more stringent rules. It needs to be more open at the end of the day with like
Mhm.
NIL and all these other things. In the sense that it just needs to be, I guess, more not open as in like just free for business, right? But as
Right.
in more openly disclosed.
Open record, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, because the thing is that, right, like there's ways around that. That's what happened before, right? Oh, well, that's crazy that, Alabama just landed the #1 recruit in the nation. And by the way, both his parents got high paying jobs in Tuscaloosa. That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. Those are not associated at all, right?
Yeah.
And then there was like Cam Newton and all. It's like those things have happened, and it's not just an SEC thing, it's happened all across the country. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's like I said, this is where college football is reaching like a critical mass of
Yeah.
figuring out what's going to happen before it dies, to be
Right.
honest.
And all that to say, to wrap back to where we were at, I feel bad for Sharon, not because I think Michigan's in trouble with the NCAA. I don't think they'll do anything, but the whole team's gone. I
Yeah.
mean, all their superstars from that run are gone. Now, they've recruited well, all that stuff, but he's definitely not just walking into some kind of cakewalk.
I do want to say before we get too far, they did lose the best quarterback that Michigan's ever had, according to Jim Harbaugh.
I mean, hey,
I just think it's funny. The dude threw like 13 passes in the championship game or something wild.
well, one of their games, yeah, he hardly threw the ball whatsoever. They just ran it down someone's Penn State. That's who it was against Penn State.
No,
I think he
no, it was the championship game.
really.
He had like 13 pass attempts or
Oh,
something
I
like
thought it
that.
was more than that.
I
Uh,
will look it up. I will look it up. Just okay over here.
but I know that Penn State, he really did. He threw it only like 11 times the whole game against Penn State. Like, that's a fact. Um,
Uh uh JJ McCarthy had 10 completions with 18 pass attempts for 140 yards.
in the championship game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but look at the Penn State game.
Oh well, I agree with you. I'm just saying he said he was like, this is the best quarterback I've, and I'm like, look, I don't think JJ McCarthy's bad, but I don't think if you have somebody like Tom Brady as alumni,
But
kind of,
yeah, I mean, but Tom Brady never won a national championship.
yeah, I guess.
He
I mean,
never won a Big Ten championship for that matter.
but it's just, it's again, it's funny that I don't know. It was just one of those funny things of like you're saying this is the best quarterback, and it's like when you look at his stat line, there's
Yeah,
nothing about what he did that you're like, the man, what a performance. That's what won the game.
I
Um,
get it. I think he was more so talking about just winning, as opposed to stats. The guy won more. I mean, the only other guy in recent memory, and not even recent memory, but some kind of post World War, Brian Greasy. I mean, he
yeah.
got a share of a national title, right? Like
I
that's
mean,
your
like,
last
look,
guy.
I like JJ McCarthy. He seems like a good dude. I don't have any problem with him. But yeah, it's just the whole Michigan thing. Like I said, the whole thing's weird. I really want to see what Sharon can do because I do think Sharon's like mega talented. So yeah, just
Yeah.
have like you said, I'm happy for him, but we'll see how it shakes out next year.
Well, let's keep moving. We got way too bogged down there. NFL wise, just a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, because guess what? Another Sooner's going to the Pro Bowl. And his name is Baker Mayfield, baby, who makes the Pro Bowl. Let's go.
I'm
So,
hyped. I'm hyped, dude. Dude, Baker got a lot of love, man. Like it was crazy through the like he had more passing yards, I think, until the divisional championships. So uh honestly played really well. You know what's crazy? I know he had like I think in one of those games he had a couple of bad picks and stuff, but it's like Mike Evans did not play. In my opinion, well, Mike Evans had moments in both of their playoff games where he just kind of disappeared
yeah.
and was just dropping the ball or whatever. And Baker still put up those crazy stats.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
guess what? He's won as many games now. Like he has as many playoff wins as the Cleveland Browns do.
Yeah. Yep. Um, a heck of a year. And I don't care if he's a replacement or not. The man gets to say Pro Bowler. That's all I care about. Just a crazy, awesome comeback story. Great season. Just good on him, man. It was awesome. Very quickly, Jared, how did you feel about conference NFC, AFC championship games where we're coming off all that stuff? I know. Can you please just not let's not talk about Taylor Swift because I know that that's why you watch the Chiefs games. So please just keep it to
Very
football. All
clearly
right.
an open Swifty here. Um, Look, I'm gonna be honest. The Kansas City Chiefs. I told this. So I text this because I know our comrade Troy,
Yes.
the giant Chiefs fan. The
Yes.
Kansas City Chiefs are now the most easy to dislike team in the entire football league, in National Football League.
Why?
For one, well, the ancillary stuff, right? As much as like I used to not hate Mahomes, his wife unbearable, his brother unbearable, right? So much so that there's apparently been reports that his dad doesn't even like. I don't know. That's a whole deal. But like I cannot stand. It's really hard. It's getting to that point now. After every single catch, like this is where I drew a like this is where I was like I was not. I wanted the Ravens to win, right? But I don't. I'm not
Yeah.
invested. I'm not invested in the game like I would be an OU game, right? So I'm not. If the Chiefs won, I'm like whatever. Where I got livid in that game, Travis Kelsey every time he catches the ball is like celebrating and taunting and like literally pointing at people's faces and yelling every time, right? No flag, no flag. One time, one time a Ravens player gets up and says something to somebody, they flag him for, and it's a game changing penalty.
It ended up being a game-changing penalty.
Now again, I'm not going to be like, well, the refs, the refs weren't throwing the ball to their team like Lamar Jackson was, right? That you had what two back-breaking turnovers basically in your end zone. So yeah, that is what it is. But you know what I mean? It's just they have this attitude of I think Patrick Mahomes is a generational talent, right? I think he could easily go down as one of the greatest to ever play the game. Fine,
The.
maybe yes, but the problem I have with them is they always have this attitude like they try to sell like the Bills game. It's like the after the Bills game, they were like taunting after the game. yelling at the fans and all that. It's like, bro, just shut up. Like you've literally gotten every call you've needed to the last like 2 years. Stop acting like you're the victim here. You know what I mean? Stop acting like you're an underdog, right? You're the defending Super Bowl champs. Shut up. Just shut up and go do your job. You know what I mean? Like it's maybe the old person in me. It's just literally just shut up and do your job. Yeah, everybody knows that you're good. Travis Kelsey, everybody knows you're the top, the best tight end in the NFL. Patrick
Yep.
Mahomes, everybody knows you're the best quarterback in the NFL, right? Just go do your job then. Stop acting like the NFL's out to get you and that nobody believes in you. Like it's those sort of attitude things where I'm like, just shut up. That's why I don't like you.
I mean, sometimes I agree. Like when Kirby Smart says that in college football, it's a joke. But with them, it was true. I mean, like, look, I was one of them. Like, dude, this team's not as good. This team's in trouble. They thought they could survive without wide receivers, and they can't. Like, they're going to struggle. And here they are. They're back in the Super Bowl. So, I mean, I think a lot of people were on that train early 5, 6, 7 games into the season, right? Like now the pity pout stuff after the Buffalo game was terrible. We all agree. And Patrick Mahomes did. Even Patrick Mahomes
No, I'm
said,
I'm talking about the playoff game.
"Oh, hey, I don't know. There were people throwing snowballs at them the entire game live during the game. I I'm sorry. If I'm getting pelted with snowballs for an entire game, when I win that game, I'm going to let those fans know about it. I'm going to make sure that, like you said, and here it comes back to what you said earlier. You don't want them talking? Beat them. You
No, and
tired of hearing them talk? Beat them.
dude, I get it. I'm not.
But I will say this. Here was my big take from both games. I felt like personally, both games were lost more than they were won.
Yep.
I thought the Zay Flowers rookie immaturity just came through at a max. You cannot get up, shove a guy to the ground, spin a ball in his face, stand there and yell down at him, and not think you're not going to get a penalty. Like, you cannot do that. Like, it was unbelievable. And then to turn around and from 4 yards out, you dive for the end zone, extending the ball with 3 defenders around you. Like, what are you doing? Like, how? Like,
Look,
what are you doing? And then Lamar's throw. And Todd Monken, what are you doing? Do you realize that? I don't know what it ended up in the final, but I believe it was 6 minutes to go in the third quarter. Do you know how many actual handoff run plays they had in the entire game?
mm,
6.
jeez.
6 handoffs. You're asking Lamar Jackson to drop back. I think somebody did the math the other day, and I believe like 90 something percent or 88% of their entire plays were drop back passes. Like, I believe Lamar Jackson's a great quarterback, but like, and then they're running play action. I'm like, you're seriously running a play action play when you have handed the ball off 6 times in 50 minutes of football.
Baltimore Ravens next offensive coordinator Jeff Lebby.
I was like, what are we doing? Like, it was
But
and I know the Kansas City defense is legit, but you have like Isaiah Pacheco is a great example. He got nothing for most of that game. But on his 10th, 12th carry, guess what? He broke a tackle, boom, 8 yards. And now they have to account for it. Like, that's part of football. I mean, I just thought everything the Ravens did, their mentality, their lack of execution, the penalties, the turn, like all of it was bad. And then you do the same thing in the Detroit game. You are winning this game and you are up 2 scores and you think you need to go for it on 4th and 3rd and 3 yards instead of taking points that you can get, right? Like, what are we doing here?
but
Again, Jahmyr Gibbs, a rookie, not been in that situation before, showed his immaturity, fumbles the ball in a very advantageous area of the field for them. I mean, like, I just feel like both teams lost it more than they won it.
look, I will say this year, Lamar Jackson still deserves to get the MVP.
Yes.
Like the play where he ended up, the ball got tipped and he went and caught it. It's like he just
That
completed a pass to himself.
was awesome.
Yeah, I mean the dude is crazy good. He didn't have his best game, obviously. And like I said, I agree with you. There was a lot of weird things with that Ravens game. But yeah, and it was the same thing with the Lions on the other side, right? Like they were, I was like, dude, they're trouncing the
Oh,
Niners right now.
I couldn't believe how
Like
bad
even
they were
even at
beaten.
halftime, even when it went to halftime, I was like, okay, the game got tightened up score wise, but it kind of feels like the Lions are still just all over the top of them.
Yes.
And then, they just kind of let it slip away. But by the way, Aiden Hutchinson, speaking of Michigan, Aiden Hutchinson, that dude is a freak.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I thought they were fun games. This has been an absolutely fantastic playoff to watch.
Yes.
I've really enjoyed watching them. I'm actually excited. Kudos. I'll give kudos to the NFL. They did something with the Pro Bowl because the Pro Bowl used to suck to watch because nobody cared. None of the players were just there to get a free vacation,
Mm-hmm.
right? They didn't want to get hurt, so they weren't going to go out and play hard. They weren't going to do anything, that risky. Now you
Right.
do all these skill challenges. It's flag football. They take it kind of lightheartedly still, so there's a little bit of joking and it's like it's last year was so much fun to watch, and it's like this is like last year I was kind of like I don't know what to think.
Yeah.
I don't know what to think about it, and I really enjoyed watching it. This year I'm actually looking forward to it. So it's like the NFL has actually started to do some smart things.
I agree.
Um,
And I want to go to it. I mean, that's something that's on my next list of things to go do is I'd love to go to the Pro Bowl.
yeah. So I'm excited. But yeah, I mean, I think the Niners Chiefs gonna be a blast.
It's
Uh,
gonna be
it's gonna be yeah. I mean, is it weird that we're cheering for? I mean, at least I'm cheering for Brock Purdy.
a little bit, but I don't think we ever
Look,
I
here's
don't
the
know.
thing. I never had anything against Brock Purdy,
No.
right?
Nope.
Uh, um, and the funny thing about it is the dude. He's just a good dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he doesn't like if you like when you hear him doing an interview, it's like he still talks like he's a freshman in college in the sense of like he's just like I'm just glad to be here.
I think the only issue anybody ever had with Brock Purdy as OU fans is like the super obnoxious OU fan that couldn't wrap their mind around that college football is still an entertainment product. And so when OU and Iowa State would play, they would build Brock Purdy up as some great quarterback going against another. And it's like, dude, he can't hold Baker's jockstrap, right? Like he is not in the same stratosphere as Kyler Murray. Like they're not in the same. And he always had those ridiculous turnovers in college. I mean, the worst turnovers in college. And yet they built him up as this great thing. But look, man, the guy got an opportunity and he is seizing it.
Mr. Irrelevant, which is wild.
Mr. Irrelevant.
I mean,
Like,
that's the crazy thing. Like I said, I'm just cheering for him just in general. Like,
yeah.
and you know what's funny is like
And
it's
McCaffrey. I want it for McCaffrey.
oh I would love it for McCaffrey. And that's the thing. It's really funny. Like I probably have I mean besides Trent Williams, like there's nobody on that. I don't think there's anybody on the Niners that went. Well, sorry, I'm apologies. Um, Breed Willis is obviously on
Thank
the
you. Thank you.
Niners. But yeah, it's like there's more OU guys I believe on the Chiefs team. But
Yes.
it's like I'm just kind of like I really like the Niners team. Like as weird as that is to say, like I never hate it. We've never been NFL guys.
Right.
So I never had like that. I just hate that organization or
Right.
whatever. Um, but I know a lot of people don't like the Niners. And it's like, bro, I kind of like the Niners. Like there's just a lot of personalities on that team that I like.
Yeah. I know that Christian McCaffrey he's one of the best running backs I've ever seen. And especially at his size, the things he can do, his speed, all that stuff. And he's, I mean, unfortunately, his shelf life is almost done. I mean, that's crazy to say, but like he doesn't have a whole lot left. And that guy deserves a Super Bowl. Like I like it when the
He's
great players win Super Bowls. And
he's at risk. I think I know what you're saying. He's at risk if they don't win it in the next few years. He's at risk of being like the Barry Sanders.
yeah, yeah.
Like I don't
That,
think let me be clear. I don't think as
no,
great as I think C-Mac
no,
is,
no.
he's not Barry
No,
Sanders.
he's not in that strat. But for our era, like this little 10-year era right here, he's one of the best backs that's ever been in the
He's a
league.
generational talent.
Yeah, I mean, he's great. I mean, he is fantastic. So I mean, it'll be a fascinating game. There's a lot of storylines from Kelsey and Mahomes to, there's going to be lots made of Andy Reid and his career and Hall of Fame and all the stuff. There's going to be the Taylor Swift part. There's going to be the Mr. Irrelevant, the Bosa, the Shanahan, the guy that was there and blew a lead to New England and blew a lead that, Mr. He always gets towards the end and then just chokes, like that's going to be a storyline. McCaffrey's going to be a storyline. I mean, there's just so much involved in that thing. That's kind of crazy. So it was fun. Loved it. And let's wrap up very quickly with some Thunder. Look, man, you mentioned they did get a win tonight against the Nuggets, although at home and without Nikola Jokic. So, it's a win and they needed it and they played well and that's all great. But it's been a rough skid, man. They lost to the Pistons, which was gross.
Yeah.
They lost to Timberwolves, and there's another loss in there somewhere. I can't even remember who it is, but there's been a lot of losses here. The most recent one being to the Timberwolves in a really tight game as they played down the stretch. Now, I think there's a couple things that Thunder fans that are now, like we say, Oklahoma fans of all sorts, basketball and football, love to just, it's all over. This team was a fake and a fun. Like, okay, you need to know. Here's some things to know. They have had the toughest strength of schedule pre All-Star break of anybody in the NBA. They have played the toughest schedule by all the metrics of anybody. They also, in the month of January, had 5 back-to-back games. Okay? That takes a toll. They also played the max number of games that the NBA collective bargaining agreement will let you play. They've played 17 games in 30 days. Okay? 17 games in 30 days with 5 back-to-backs. Okay? And the reality is they don't have a true big on this team. And you've just got done playing Gobert, Cat, Duran with the Pistons. They played Wimby a week ago or so. This team is beat up, man. Playing big, center-laden teams. And you could really see it against the Timberwolves, I felt like.
Well,
And J-Dub going out injured, Isaiah Joe, and even their injuries were really somewhat fatigue induced, right? Like,
well, and when you turn around that fast, the other part of that is you don't have time. Like you don't get to do a lot of practices to clean things up. As you get through the season,
yep.
you start having things that you have to clean up, and it's like I don't think they've had time to do that in a month. Like you're
No.
starting to see that when you've watched some of their games, or even just seen stat lines from them. You can just tell that they're getting to that point where they're getting, I wouldn't say sloppy, but you know what I mean? It just needs to be tightened up, right? And you don't get that chance because you're so tired, like they can't practice, they don't have the time to practice, and get those things as invest as much time as they need to in those things. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a little bit wild, but I mean, like again, still on course to be, you know, they're I mean, I said 50 wins.
You
I said
did.
50 wins.
You said
So,
50 wins.
and
They're
they're
still on
on,
pace.
yeah. So well on
Absolutely.
pace.
Very well on pace. I mean, again, I'm not I'm not freaking out. The only thing that I am freaking out about this team, and I wish Troy could have been on tonight because he and I kind of went back and forth about this the other day. The one thing with this team that concerns me moving to the playoffs is the lack of rebounding and the lack of a big man defensively. And I don't mean as a starter. I just mean somebody that can come in when you're playing one of these bigs and give Chet a break and just be solid defensively and rebound really well. I mean, they have been a bad rebounding team all year. And in the playoffs, that is going to matter. And just having a big body because the playoffs are a grind like this January is. You're playing night off, playing night off, playing night all the way through from April through June. It's that way. And
So
I think they need to go get a big of some kind on the trade market.
look, so I don't disagree with you a little bit, but it's really funny when you look at this team and how they like. I saw it said the other day. I think on like offensive rebounding, they rank like 29th or something. Like they're terrible. Like their stats are terrible. But their like shooting has just been so prolific at times that it just keeps
Right.
them in it. But yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I just think that they have to. I don't know it. I think they're kind of using a different style, so it's hard to compare them a little bit. But I do think Chet needs some time to rest, right? Like you have to give
Mhm.
him some of that, somebody that you can put out there that can give him a little bit more time to rest. But the other thing was, did you get to watch the San Antonio Thunder game, the Wemby game?
I think I got to watch a few glimpses of it. Yes.
Bro, I was
Oh, I
so
take that back. I
livid.
got to watch the whole. That's right. I got home that night, and I think I picked up towards the end of the second quarter and watched the rest of the game.
So I think it was in the first quarter. I can't remember what it was, but they were literally talking like literally one of the announcers basically said, and this like drove me up a wall. They were like, I think everybody, he was like, well, obviously everybody here is tuning in to see Wimby.
Hmm.
And I'm like, yes, everybody in the nation is tuning in to watch Wimby, who's playing on a team that I understand Wimby's fantastic, but he's playing on a team that's dead last or near dead. Well, not dead last, but they're near the bottom of the West
Hmm.
against what is a top seed right now in the West with their own superstar in Chet. And then
And
later on, that
Shea.
same and Shea. And then later on was like, well, my concern was, and no, it wasn't the same announcer, but it was somebody, I don't remember who it was. But they were like, my problem is you just look at the body language of this team and it's just like there's a weird chemistry with them. I just don't know if they have the right attitude to play together in the playoffs. And I'm like, bro, like, are we seeing different things? Because like this team is not only like chemistry wise is probably one of the best in the NBA.
Yeah.
They very much are like they like I even watched it was funny. It's like when you watch the interview after where they were interviewing, I don't remember who they were interviewing. Literally half of the team is in the background, like a bunch of kids giving him a hard time and messing with him, and you know what I mean? It's like they
Yeah.
love to just mess with each other and all that. So it's like anyway, just drove me up a wall that San Antonio game, but it was a fun thing to watch, and it was cool to see Wimby and Chet go back and forth. It did feel a little weird because I just like I was kind of laughing because I was like, I get it, like Wimby had a good game statistically in that one, but it's like he kept kind of like getting in Chet's face and stuff, and I'm like, bro, like it's scoreboard, bro, like you're down 20,
Yeah.
like you know what I mean,
Yeah,
like
you kept texting that to Troy and I. It's like I love that Wimby's like getting in his face when he's down 20. Like he like something's really
yeah, like
clicking
he's
over
like, oh,
here.
I'm about to just yeah, it was just yeah, I don't know. So yeah, the NBA's been fun, Thunder have been fun. God, softball's about to start. Women's
Yeah.
gymnastics lighting it up. At OU, like, dude, Oklahoma's athletics, just the state,
We
pretty
are in
wild.
a good time of the year right now because yes, women's athletic or women's gymnastics, I think has the highest three highest scores of this season, and two of those scores I think would have been in the top two or three or the number one score from last year. So they're killing it, man. They are tough. OU softball's gonna be tough. About to open a new stadium. Thunder looking great. Heck, I'm excited to see OU baseball. I think that's a sport that nobody's talking about that recruited really well, had some really young players last year, and could really make a splash this spring. I mean, it's loaded time, man. It is fun, fun, fun. Spring game will be here before we know it. It's good times, man. It's great to be a fan of sports in Oklahoma. So that's all I got. Anything else you got?
Just real quick, watch what was it, Captains of the World? The World Cup show that we were talking about on
Yes.
Netflix.
Yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
also one that I was telling you about before the pod started. It's Six Nations. I think it's called Six Nations Full Contact, and it's about rugby. Bro,
Nice.
by the way, like I knew rugby was rough, but I didn't
Dude.
realize like, dude, like they leave like because they're like they go in the locker rooms with them after the games. So it's the same like formula of like Drive to Survive,
Uh-huh.
right? Where, like they follow them around. It's the same
Yeah.
thing that it was with the Captains of the World and all
Yeah.
that formula. Dude, those guys like like it's like I guess in my mind I thought like somebody might have a black eye. Like those guys come out and they look like they literally just got like knocked to the ground and stepped on for like hours. Like I'm talking about blood. Like there was one where like a dude, it looked like somebody took like sandpaper and just like sanded off his forehead
Oh my
and like has
gosh.
like a bloody eye and like blood coming out of his. It's just crazy. Like they looks like they came out of a battle. So I've actually wanted to go see a rugby. Like I'd love to go to like an, especially like dude. I told somebody I was like that's like one of my weird bucket list sports things now, and it's like moved way up the list. It's always been on there, but I would like love to go see like New Zealand versus
Oh man, they're
whoever, like one of those big
yeah.
rugby
Well, what
nations.
is do they call it the World Cup of Rugby? Is that what it's called? Like when they do their big national
It's
or
weird. I don't really
world?
know. It doesn't. It kind of explains it, but there's so like the Six Nations one is like basically like a group. It's like Ireland, Scotland, Wales, England, Italy, and France. I think they all play like their own. Like it's like kind of like the
Yeah.
Concacaf or whatever you want to call it.
Uh-huh.
It's sort of like that. Like they have their league and then they rank and then they go. I think there is a World Cup also. But this one follows the Six Nations one, so it's just those nations. It's just those Six Nations. Um, but yeah, just definitely watch it. Like I have a whole new respect for rugby players, dude. It's like literally just I consider myself tough, and then like I watch those guys and I'm like, dude, I'm a baby, bro. Like
Yeah.
I'm not built that way, dude. So but yeah, and then Drive to Survive's coming back. Formula One will
Oh
be back in
gosh.
like a month, so I'm hyped, man. It's good
Good
time.
grief.
I gotta get something in my veins, dude. I gotta get sports in my veins to keep me over till OU football
Yeah,
starts.
and I gotta finish the Captains of the World. I gotta finish that one. I think we only have a couple episodes left, but um, I've loved what I've seen thus far. And again, it's the same thing of just like, man, we think we're hardcore about college football or the world, and how hardcore they are about soccer is insane, bro. It is a whole
I did.
other level.
I will say another one that they just released. There's one that's like a NASCAR one.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
and it was kind of interesting to watch because it tells some of their stories, and it's like it's wild to think what like some of them obviously have parents that are well off or whatever, but it's
Right.
like Denny. I think it was Denny Hamlin's parents like mortgaged their house multiple times so they could pay for his racing
Jeez.
career when he was young, and
Wow.
all these crazy things. And it's like it's like to put that into frame, like like the dad sold multiple cars and like he like they were literally like funding their kid's career right when he was
Wow.
young through like
Right.
very risky means. And of course it paid off, but it's just wild to see like some of those backstories and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's but and again, some of those NASCAR people are freaking. They have a couple of deals where it's like, dude, that's NASCAR is a wild sport too. So
Yeah, it
they have
is.
some weird fans. So but yeah, I do agree. Like NAS or with sorry, with rugby and the like you said, the World Cup stuff. It was the same thing. Like there was people in the World Cup deal. I remember it may be on like the last episode. I think it may have been whenever it was Argentina and France or whatever in the final.
Yep.
Which by the way, that episode,
Oh, I
chef's
can't
kiss. So
wait.
not
I
to
can't wait.
but dude, that's like they were like interviewing people like outside the stadium, like, oh yeah, like well, it was the same thing. Like we like remortgaged our house or we like sold our car so we could come here.
Yeah.
Like people were literally like doing every spin. It's like because Argentina's not like a rich country,
No.
and people
No.
were selling like literally like all their possessions just to go watch them play in the World Cup. It's like that is nuts, dude.
Dude,
Like
let's put it this way. If the SEC decided to join the World Cup fan base, the SEC would not be World Cup ready.
no, no, it would not. Um, so, but yeah, it is wild. So I am liking, I do like that new formula or whatever style of show because I'm just a big sports nut. But
Yeah.
yeah, some really good ones. So check those out, I think.
That's fun. And the new season of Reacher finished excellent. So check it out as well. Don't have time to go into all of it, but it was beautiful. Great follow up to season 1. Great follow up to season 1. So anyways, that's us. And so again, like, subscribe, follow, do all the things. We hope you've enjoyed it. Hope we've given you a little bit of insight, a little bit of something to discuss at the water cooler tomorrow with our very average podcast. We are having a great time. We hope you did too. I'm Daryl. That's Jared, and we will talk to you guys later.
Bye, Baker.